Hello everyone and welcome to another video here on Twitch Productions. Before the video begins, I just wanted to give a little heads up that this video was recorded quite a bit earlier. It was recorded in January, early January actually, before I uploaded the 2018 predictions video. But as soon as it got up, I had family that came over from Brazil, I got sick, and school started. So of course I haven't had enough time to edit the video, and by this point, no one is talking about Last Jedi anymore. That being said, the video's already done, I just gotta edit it together, which I'm doing now, and I figured I might as well post it either way. So if you want to hear a little bit about Last Jedi and hear our opinions on it, Dennis is in this video as well, then stick around. If not, I get it, there will be a new video coming soon. I'm working on some stuff, and sorry about that.
All right, so today we are going to be talking about Star Wars: The Last Jedi. In regular old Tweetiest fashion, we're talking about it 2 weeks after everyone else stopped talking about it, but we're talking about it. And mainly we're going to be going over certain opinions of the film, and this is not a review. This isn't like, oh, is The Last Jedi good or bad? No, we both enjoyed the film. I have certain points that I want to discuss about it that I thought were strange, and I brought on Dennis because he's the only other person that I know that likes Star Wars to a similar degree as I do. So we're going to start off with, and this is, again, a bit of a minor point with the film, but how they use Carrie Fisher, General Organa, in this film. I mean, here's the first thing. I don't have an issue with her force powers in the scene where she gets blown out. Also, before we begin, Star Wars spoilers for everything Star Wars. I don't know why you would click on an episode of something that says The Last Jedi if you haven't seen The Last Jedi, but if you did, stop watching this. What's going on at this point is after Force Awakens, the First Order has found the Resistance base, and they're coming to destroy it. The Resistance is aware of this, and they're evacuating. So right now, they have 3 ships, right? There was a bombing run. They tried to destroy this ship because Poe was being stupid, and it didn't work out, and a lot of the Resistance is dead at this point. So they have 3 ships left. It's a medical frigate, this huge main command ship, and another ship that I don't remember what it was. The medical frigate and the other ship go down eventually, but their captains jettison all their crew in escape pods to this main ship. So we're at a scene where this ship, its shields are keeping it just far enough from the Force Order to be destroyed, but they're running low on gas, they have nowhere to go, and they're just stuck. They're basically just buying time until they're all dead. And everyone in the Resistance is on this ship at this current point. So Admiral Holdo, who takes over for Leia, because everyone in their main office is dead. Leia is in a coma, Akbar is dead, all the commanders are dead. So she takes over, and Admiral Holdo thinks up this idea that she's not going to tell anyone about. I don't know why, but she's preparing their escape pods to send them to the planet of Crate, which is close off, right? So everyone can get there at this old Resistance, this old rebel base that only Holdo and Leia knew about. But again, she doesn't tell anyone. So Poe Dameron, being the hothead, X-Wing pilot that he is, sends Finn and Rose, the new character that was in all the clips and everything. They send them to this planet called Canto Bight because Maz Kanata was like, hey, there's this master code breaker that you can find so you can get in the ship and turn off this thing where they can track you for hyperspace and all this nonsense. It's stupid and ridiculous. There's no reason for this plot point to exist. So they go off and do that, and the whole thing about this, if Holdo had just told everyone what was going on, and Dameron confronts her multiple times about this, but if she had just said something, not only would they have sent someone that's not Finn and Rose, who, keep in mind, Finn is a First Order stormtrooper janitor, and Rose is someone who fixes ships. These people are not, they're not people who should be infiltrating someplace and trying to pull this master codebreaker and get him back to the Resistance, and it might be the only way they survive. You know what I mean? They should have been sent with a crew of actual Resistance people to go to Canto Bight to get this codebreaker. But they weren't, because Holdo wants to withhold this information. Another reason why it doesn't make sense is if you want to go for there's a big reveal that they're going to Crate. This planet was shown in the trailers. We knew they were going there. So why do we need this mystery of there's another planet they're going to go to? It was the third act of the movie. We knew they were going to go to the planet. We had seen it.
Right. So my typical opinion for that type of thing, that type of complaint, is that usually if someone doesn't do this, then of course there's not going to be a movie. And yes, that's usually true, but in Admiral Holdo's case, that took me way too many takes to pronounce. That behavior just feels super out of character, depending on which character she's supposed to be. And I get that there's the whole reveal that she actually had good intentions the whole time and she wasn't this clueless, like, prick. I get that, but I don't know. They could have gone about it in a different manner that wouldn't have felt as forced to me. Forced. But she, because for her to, the way she goes about everything else being so, like, gung-ho about just cutting through the other ship, she is, as she calls Poe Dameron, a trigger-happy flyboy in her own right, and that's an interesting, like, thing, and I get that she's supposed to be, like, groomed by Leia to be this replacement for her, almost, which we'll get to, but it doesn't feel like that when she's behaving the way she does in the beginning, and I get that we're only getting the parts that we see from Poe's view, but it doesn't make sense to me that in her position of power, because she is commanding the whole thing, it's not that she needs to give every detail of her plan to everyone, but especially in that type of situation, it would make more sense for her to just have everyone be on the same page. And I agree that Finn, for the sake of the drama in the movie, it is better for Finn and Rose to be the ones to go to the casino, but even then, frankly, it felt like filler to me. A lot of that, and I thought this when watching that, a lot of that section of the movie to me felt like I was watching a fan fiction visualized, and it was super awkward to me. It felt choppy.
Right, so for the Finn and Rose thing, what I mean by, like, what they should have been sent with a squad, it's not so much that would have been good for the film, it's just, like, realistically thinking for these characters, that's what they would have done. I mean, I don't think there was an issue with Rose and Finn going, because I actually don't think it was a bad storyline. I just don't think it belongs in a film. That was a Clone Wars type storyline. And I actually love the planet of Canto Bight. I think it's an interesting place to show. But going back to Holdo, it's like you said, this is a good character. This character was smart. This character made sense. This character is a leader of a rebellion at this point, right? Why wouldn't she inform her crew of what she's doing? I feel like that's just basic stuff. And maybe they were trying to get it at the point where, like, Poe Dameron is used to knowing everything that's going on because Leia likes him, right? Leia, he's her pilot, and that's the reason he knows everything. And maybe they're trying to show that, Poe, you know, you're not everything that you think you are. You're not that important to the Resistance. You're just a pilot. But I disagree entirely. That doesn't make sense to me. Poe made a bad decision with the bombing run. Absolutely. But what does that matter? Poe should have known this whole storyline could have, and they still could have gone to Canto Bight. That's the thing. It just, if Holdo had said something, everyone would be working on the same page, and this bullshit friction that's in between these characters wouldn't have existed, and it doesn't need to exist. Holdo was a smart person. She jumps the ship into light speed to cut through the entirety of their fleet. She gets this amazing scene, but her character is diminished because she didn't talk to her crew. And that's an idiotic thing that I don't think a commander of a rebellion would ever do. And they put the entire rebellion in jeopardy because of that stupid decision, because they want to play up Poe Dameron as like, oh, he's this hothead fighter pilot, and you can't solve all your problems by blasting. And that's true, and I get it. Then there was a point that was supposed to be made, but it wasn't made right, and it's at the cost of everyone in those scenes. And then actually, it's at the cost of the film, because the Canto Bight stuff slowed down everything. No one cared. If that had been done right, and maybe even if it had been done as a comic or something else, it would have been better. But it didn't feel right.
And it's what you said, too, about it being something that could fit better into a comic rather than going into a full, like, numbered Star Wars film. To me, it's something that works better in a smaller setting. Again, it's too much like filler to be a part of, again, a numbered film, a major part of a trilogy. It feels like a Clone Wars episode. It feels like a film that should be maybe a Star Wars story, like Rogue One was. And even then, there's only so much you can do with that plot. It doesn't go that long or that far. It felt out of place. And it didn't... Another major thing for that is that it didn't match the tone of the rest of the movie. Although, of course, some of it was on the lighthearted end, so you could kind of argue, but it really didn't. The general idea of the film is, as Kylo Ren says in both the trailer and in the movie, to get rid of the past, to kill it if you have to, that doesn't match the rest of that idea. And I get that there is the subplot to every major film and every major plot, but when it strays so far and just kind of feels like its own separate entity entirely, it's just strange to me. I don't feel like it works.
And that's the thing too, right? So the Resistance escaping the First Order is the B plot. And it's a good B plot. It's an interesting story. But the Canto Bight stuff is a C plot, right? It didn't need to be there. Also, when you throw in the war profiteering stuff, listen, I understand that point, and that's a fair point to make. But then again, that belongs in the era of the Clone Wars. If you want to paint the Republic and the Separatists as these two sides of the same thing that are just fighting to fight, I understand where you're coming from. But when you try to paint the Empire and the Rebels, or the Resistance and the First Order at that, when one side are literal space Nazis enslaving the galaxy and people fighting against them, it doesn't work as well, because there is a clear bad guy and a clear good guy in Star Wars. You know, the Jedi did stuff that were terrible, but the Jedi don't exist anymore. Luke didn't do stuff that is super questionable. Rey hasn't done stuff that is super questionable. Kylo Ren has. Supreme Leader Snoke has. General Hux has. Phasma has. You know what I mean? The only character that you could even argue has that duality of, like, maybe he did some messed up stuff is Finn, but even then we know that he didn't because we saw it in Force Awakens. That whole war profiteering story just doesn't fit. And another really minor complaint I have with Canto Bight is that while DJ's character I thought was fine, Benicio del Toro did fine in the role, and the character I didn't think was great, but why wouldn't they just put Lando Calrissian in that role? I think it's absurd, and Rian Johnson said that he thought about putting Lando Calrissian in this film, and I really do think it's crazy, and it makes no sense that Lando has yet to show up in this series at all. He's the only one of the main cast who hasn't, and it's ridiculous. It's been 2 films. If he's not in the third one, that means Admiral Akbar got placed in a film and Lando didn't. And I think that's not fair to that character. You know, Lando at the end of the films was a general of the rebellion. Why wouldn't he be here? And it would have made so much sense if he was the code breaker that Maz Kanata recommended. Or heck, if they had just gone to Maz's castle and gotten Maz Kanata to do it. There's better ways to have done this. And because they wanted to put that stupid war profiteering story in this film where it didn't belong, and I'm not saying it doesn't belong in the Star Wars universe, just not in this movie. It completely, like, skews from the story, from the main point, which, like Dennis said, is the Kylo Ren line. Get rid of the past, kill it if you have to. That is the story that this movie's trying to tell, and Canto Bight doesn't have a place in it. Even though the planet's cool, and I like the world building of it. I enjoyed it. But I didn't like it in the Star Wars film.
And the other issue with, as you mentioned, with Maz Kanata, they, in her small role in the film, they essentially, at least to me, I feel like they neutered what they could have done with the character there. And even just having her be the thing, or like going to her to get someone else in a more physical sense. And don't get me wrong, I love that she's a badass and everything, but it doesn't utilize Lupita Nyong'o as wonderful of an actress as she is, and as much of a star as she is. It limits the point of having someone like that in your cast, and then having a pretty solid character to use as well, and just doing nothing with it other than having them appear in a funny moment for having her fighting a union dispute, which is a wonderful, wonderful line. But it just doesn't utilize that character as much as I feel like she should be utilized if you're not going to use someone like Lando Calrissian. And as much as I really enjoy Benicio del Toro's character, but that's more because I really enjoy Benicio del Toro, so his performance in that role is, I thought the characterization was just wonderful. He's there to push the whole point of the war profiteering subplot, and again, I feel like it's out of place, therefore making that character feel awkward and out of place.
For the Maz Kanata point, I totally agree. I mean, I think it's fine that Maz had a cameo in this film, right? If she wasn't going to be a part of the story, I want her to show up somehow. But I do want them to utilize Maz Kanata more than what they have, because there's another thing. If Luke Skywalker is Rey's Obi-Wan Kenobi, I feel like Maz should be her Yoda. You know, Maz isn't a Force user, but she's Force sensitive, and I think Maz should be the one to help Rey, kind of filter through what she's going through and help her out, because she's a great character, And if she's just a one-off character for Force Awakens and that's all she had to do, that's fine. But I want more for her in this film, especially since now the cast is a lot emptier. You know what I mean? Han Solo's gone. General Leia is gonna be gone. Luke Skywalker's gone. General Snoke is gone. A lot of the main characters of this film aren't around, so I feel like you're gonna have more time for these more kind of background characters like Maz Kanata and Lando Calrissian in the next film. And if they aren't used right, it's gonna annoy me a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. And for for DJ, his character, I think I liked him, but again, it feels like a character that belongs in the Clone Wars series to me. Like it's like Dennis said, he feels out of place not because the character's out of place, but because the story's out of place. And if the story had been told in a different medium than in an episode film, I think it would have been fine and people would have liked it a lot more. So now that we've covered the B storyline, I think we should go into the A storyline, and I'm going to focus first off on Luke Skywalker, because I want to defend the filmmakers in the beginning. I don't have a problem with how Luke handled the Kylo Ren fight thing. I think it's fine that Luke thought about killing Ben Solo. Why wouldn't he? Luke had to fight in this huge rebellion and destroy the Empire, and if any of us had seen something that even gave you a small sense of we have to go through all of that again, I think everyone would think about it. It's the same thing. It's like, would you kill a baby Hitler? That's literally what it was asking, and Luke thought about it, but Luke wasn't going to. We saw in the first sense, Luke told Rey that he was defending himself and it was some nonsense and Kylo Ren was a monster, which is not true. Kylo Ren told us that Luke was trying to kill him in cold blood and that he's a monster, and that's also not true. What happens is that Luke thinks about it. Kylo doesn't see Luke's true intent and thinks he's trying to murder him and fights back. So yes, Luke created Kylo Ren. It's his fault, but I don't think it's out of character for Luke Skywalker. I think that's perfectly in character.
I absolutely agree. And the thing is, too, that there's a lot of these people that keep going on about this stuff about it being, oh, this isn't my Luke. This isn't how I wanted to see Luke. It's how he would be. He's a jaded old man. When you consider that everything that's happened over the course of the character's life, he's always had that struggle between the light and dark side, the letting that fear and letting that anger take control of him. So it makes absolute sense that he would nearly do what he nearly did. Just like he nearly killed Darth Vader. It's not that he had the whole noble thing the whole time and it was just like, haha, I've defeated you. Now I will stand here and prove a point that I won't kill you. That's not the character. What happened was that he fought and he let the whole rage of the fight of what he needed to do take over him. He let that dark happen, and then he grabs a hold of it. He sees what he's doing, and he stops himself, and that's the whole point that he proves to the Emperor in Return of the Jedi. And that's the same character, but the difference is that he grows into a crotchety old man. He's not going to be the same youthful, hopeful creature that we saw. He's not the blonde kid on Tatooine. This is after he's seen his aunt and uncle get completely vaporized, literally. He had to fight his father twice, once after actually knowing that it was his father and thinking that there's a glimmer of hope in him, till the very end, nearly having to kill the man, being briefly tortured by the Emperor, and seeing all the grim, awful stuff that happens with that type of rule and everything, and then finally thinking he had restored some kind of peace or balance, and then all of a sudden seeing the same level of darkness starting to manifest in this kid who was ridiculously powerful, and his own family. It was his blood, like his father was. He saw the same type of thing, and even that he saw in himself at different points. So that is a frightening idea, and to him, that's enough to make him consider nearly doing what he nearly did. And that's the thing, though, is that he didn't. So it is still Luke. It is still the restraint of Luke. He's not some sort of monstrous, abusive prick, and I personally love that. And I also love the fact that he's a crotchety old man, because it completes his arc, and this is where also I want to get into the death, his death, because it completes his arc so well, at least I think so, as a character, that he goes on to basically become this amalgamation of his masters, of Ben Kenobi and Yoda, in every sense. The sass of Yoda while he's training Rey, and I thought that was wonderful, actual character development and exactly what would happen, because when you learn from someone, you usually take the way they teach. It's the same thing with Obi-Wan, how he took a lot of the way he taught from Qui-Gon, and before that, etc., etc. And it brings me, of course, to his death, to that last battle with Kylo Ren, how it's a direct parallel to Obi-Wan's sacrificing himself to distract Darth Vader and the Empire until they could get away. And that idea of him sacrificing himself, which I thought was great. And then there's also the complaint of, oh, Well, that's why would he die just from a little measly hologram battle? He's projecting himself through ridiculous strain, especially for a man of his age. And not only just that, it completes his purpose. Just as Yoda, once he realized that his purpose was complete and he was dying and old anyway, he let himself go into the Force. Same thing with Obi-Wan. When he completes his journey and lets Vader slash at him, he lets himself go. And that's what Luke did. It completes his arc. I thought it completed it perfectly, personally.
Right, and I think it's important to mention with that whole scene of Luke fighting Kylo and everything like that, that didn't kill Luke. The people have a misconception. That's not how Luke died. Kylo didn't hit Luke or anything and he's dead because his mind was there. No, Luke comes to at the end. Luke gives himself to the Force. That's what we see when he turns into that dust and goes away. It's the same thing that Dennis said Yoda did. Yoda gave himself to the Force. And it's actually the same thing Obi-Wan did. Darth Vader didn't kill Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan disappeared. He vanishes. No other Jedi has ever done that. A Jedi's body disappears after they are dead and becomes one with the Force, right? That we know. But Mace Windu got cut in half. Mace Windu didn't disappear as soon as the lightsaber hit him. Obi-Wan did. Vader didn't kill Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan sacrificed himself. He disappeared. And that's something I do have an issue with, bringing the point back to the similarities in Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker in these films, is that it's very well known that Obi-Wan originally was supposed to survive the fight with Vader, but they didn't know what else to do with the character. And I feel like that's the same reason Luke dies in this film. And I understand, and I do think Dennis's point of it finishes off his story arc and everything well. I agree, it does. But I don't like in any film, not just Star Wars, but in any film, I hate the tropes of oh, I'll leave myself to die while everyone escapes. They did that with Forrest Whitaker in Rogue One, right? There was no reason for that character to die there. He had no other importance to the story, but there was no reason for that character to die there while that planet was blowing up. I feel the same thing for Luke. I get there's nothing else that they need Luke to do in these stories, and that's why he's dead, but I don't like that trope. I think it's outdated. I think it's stupid. I think I'd rather have Luke just stay on Och 2 and every now and then check in with Rey, and we don't see him, than him just dying because he's dead and that's it. You know what I mean? I think it's also fine to have Luke just be like, all right, I did my part, and I'm going to stay on Och 2, and let's be honest here, Luke's going to come back as a Force ghost. I would have been fine if he just had done that projection thing again. Instead of dying, he just did that, and he was just still on Och 2, living his life, being a hermit. I would have been fine with that. He didn't need to die. That's my only thing. And it maybe annoys me more because in the next film, we're going to lose the main trio. They're all dead. And I don't like that we don't have anyone to, finish off the story. Han, Luke, and presumably Leia are going to be dead by the end of the next film. And I don't like that. I enjoy having these legacy characters in here. And, a big part of that is the nostalgia glasses, and you know what I mean? I agree. But I don't know. I don't like that we've lost everyone but the droids and Chewbacca and Lando wherever he is. And the final and possibly the biggest issue of Last Jedi that I have is the mysteries behind Rey and Supreme Leader Snoke. So, I don't know if a lot of people saw this, but there was this leak going around originally at first of the script that had Snoke was actually Anakin's father, and that he was what birthed him, and he used the midichlorians to manipulate to make him exist. And I hated that, right? I like that better than what they did. Because for those of you who don't know, in that Praetorian Guard scene that's very similar to the fight scene with the Emperor in Return of the Jedi, I think it was. It's pretty close. And Kylo Ren kills Snoke. And I'm fine with Snoke dying. I get he's not the main villain. I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is that J.J. Abrams built up this character to be something, and then he wasn't. And the same thing happened with Rey's parents. I don't care what you say. Rey was hinted to be a Skywalker. Whether you think she was Luke's or Han and Leia's, she was hinted to be a Skywalker. There's too much in that film looking at her as if she was. I don't know if JJ ever had the intention to answer that or just leave it ambiguous. I don't know. but there was too much there. There's too much hinting. And again, we learn that Rey's parents, who they are in this film, are some drunkards that traded her for drinking money, right? And we're told this information by Kylo Ren looking into her mind and taking out this information. Meaning that Rey already knew this. So why is she chasing after this thing of who her parents are if she knows exactly who they are and that they didn't matter? That doesn't make any sense. There's too many parallels between Rey and the Skywalker family, both Anakin and Luke, for her to just be nobody. I don't need her to be a Skywalker. I don't need her to be a Solo. I don't need her to be a Kenobi. But I need some bigger explanation to why this character exists and why she has the Force sensitivity and power that she has if she's no one. Because Anakin was no one. But Anakin had the stupid midichlorian nonsense. As horrible as that was, at least it explained something. And Rey didn't get that, and neither did Snoke. And I really just think this is Rian Johnson not fitting in with J.J. Abrams' vision. I think J.J. Abrams set that up to answer some question there, or to at least hint at something. And Rian Johnson took it and went a different way, and, he very much, this film tries to take your expectations and turn them around and be like, no, that's not what we're doing. Kylo's not going to get a redemption arc. Rey's not going to become the next Jedi, because the Jedi are already done, and I'm fine with that. But I don't know, it annoyed me. I didn't like it. It was dumb. That's it.
So, not to be devil's advocate, I feel like the thing with Kylo Ren looking into her mind and seeing that she is no one and that her parents are like drunkards or whatever, I feel like that's everything that she's been told, and that is, again, her fact. She doesn't, something that she refuses to believe, or shall we say accept, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's true. When she's out in that cave looking for it, and they do the whole, the reflection stuff, they do the whole reflection thing, but for a moment you see the silhouettes of two people walking to the, not sure if it's glass or whatever, the stone, where she's seeing her own reflection. I don't think they are no one. I feel like that is still hinted to actually be someone. I feel like Kylo Ren is looking to her thoughts and saying what she supposedly knows, but I feel like that's just what she's been told, or what she's heard, or what she's come to accept, shall we say accept, that could be the only logical thing for her existence. But I don't necessarily think that'll turn out to be true. I don't know how they would go about that at all, but I'm not entirely confident that it is definitely no one.
Right, and I think that's a completely fair thing to say. But I think the problem here is that that's going to happen, and it's going to be switched off, but not because that's the original plan. It's because Rian Johnson messed it up, and J.J. Abrams is now directing the next one. He's going to fix it. I think that's the only reason why. J.J. had a vision, and Rian Johnson didn't have the same vision. And I'm not sure how much of this stuff is planned out before the trilogy started. You know what I mean? I don't know what was worked on and what was fixed and what was changed around during Rian Johnson's directing. But I think that's the only reason that exists. That's the only reason that there's a possibility of Kylo being a liar. Because also, we're going to trust Kylo Ren in telling us who Rey's parents are. That's a fair point to make, you know what I mean? We don't trust this guy to begin with. Why are we going to trust him with something as important as Rey's parentage when he's trying to manipulate Rey to join his side of the fight?
Right, and for that actually to be fact, it would be like this, the same reason as they had Yoda be the one to tell in Return of the Jedi to confirm that that Darth Vader was Luke's father, because no one's going to believe the figure of Darth Vader. He might be telling the truth, he might not be. I feel like that's the same idea, but I don't think there will be someone to confirm it in the next movie. I think there will be someone to confirm that he's lying. There's also just the thing that as much as he is kind of gray, and I think that's how he will remain, gray leaning, shall we say he's a charcoal gray Force user, he does play that kind of a role of the anti-hero, the gray Jedi, I feel rather what he'll end up as, but right now he still is the big bad. He keeps trying and trying to let go of whatever light he has and just completely embrace the dark. He still wants to just, alright, this is mine now, he's gonna make himself something, and if he needs to manipulate, again, he made himself the supreme leader. If he needs to manipulate Rey by lying to her straight to her face, and to get her to be on his side, because that's how people achieve power in that situation, and in this case, it's how all of the Sith people have achieved some kind of power. It makes sense to me that he would just lie to her, have it be proven wrong later. And then that brings us also to with Snoke, the way he was portrayed. I like the fact that he died the way he did. I do like the denial of that build-up. It's keeping the similarities between Kylo Ren, Darth Vader, or Snoke and the Emperor. That's all still there, but it's not in the same manner it's not treated the same way. What I don't like is that we still have no clue who or what he's supposed to be. I get that, and this is a thing that J.J. Abrams likes to do with his films, is leave these unanswered questions, and I usually like that. I don't like it with this particular case because I feel like he needs to have some extra thing behind him, because the way he was built up was that Sidious was terrified of this immense force out beyond the galaxy, that he sent Hux's father to go find it and learn about it and how you can deal with it and everything. Darth Sidious was afraid of what is implied to be Snoke, or at least whatever he's working with or under or a part of. So I'm glad he went out like that, but I'm also confused as to why there wouldn't be anything else to go with it. And crackpot theory time. The idea that I can think to at least try to go further into Snoke and the immense dark side force power in the distance over there is that maybe it could be sort of how Luke was doing this with that final duel, but actually physically manifested, because you can have the idea of Snoke or whatever he is under or with or a part of be this immense dark energy out there that actually creates this, and they could Snoke can put forth this kind of physical embodiment just to have a figurehead, or even just a sort of actually literal physical hologram if you want to be that level of power. If anything, to me, just to keep a big bad, even if Kylo Ren can't turn, which I don't think he should turn entirely.
So let me clear up what you were saying. What you mean is Snoke. Your idea is that Snoke necessarily wasn't the body we saw was Snoke, but he's more of an idea and a creation of the dark side, and he's kind of the dark side, right? So even though we've seen that character already, so Snoke is kind of a manifestation of the dark side, and you think that he exists in some way, shape, or form still, not in that same physical body we saw in the last two films, but that he might reemerge himself to turn Kylo and Rey into a unified front, where they both are still dark and light together, but there's no First Order anymore. The walls have been teared down, and they two together are going to rebuild whatever it is that the next Jedi Order will be, and they're going to be the continuation of the Force.
Yeah, something bigger than them to actually to give them a reason to reach a stalemate, to find, even if whether they both live or they both die or whatever happens to the Resistance and the First Order, just to have, because the way it is right now, one wants to wipe the other out, and there's no reason the other shouldn't want to wipe the other out, because that's just where it ended up pushing, and that's what happens with the war. And unless there is a reason for them to just put it down or give it a rest, it doesn't make much sense to me as to why they would, because they have to find a balance, because that's the ultimate goal of all of Star Wars, is to find the balance in the Force. There's the idea of the Chosen One. With Anakin, he was supposed to be the Chosen One, and turns out he wasn't, because he ended up just pushing the entire galaxy into the dark side. Luke was supposed to be the Chosen One again, but he, instead of leaving it at the stalemate he did ultimately achieve, just by wiping out everything and being the only one left, he ended up creating more Jedi, thus pushing the Force in the galaxy all the way to the light. And I feel like ultimately, Rey and Kylo are the Chosen One. There is clearly that duality with the two of them, and I feel like they are supposed to be the Chosen One, because they somehow need to reach that stalemate to achieve balance.
It's going to be that Game of Thrones type. It's not the prince that was promised, it's the prince or princess that was promised. You know what I mean? It's going to be that, and I think that makes sense, because it's like Dennis said, the light and the dark have been unbalanced this entire time. It was the Sith era, then the Jedi era, then the Sith era, then the Jedi era, and now it's Rey and Ben are going to be able to bring it to a point where there is no light without dark. It's going to be that image we see in Luke in the cave that Luke trains Rey, of that one white being with a little bit of black inside of it, and the black being with a little bit of white inside of it, right? The yin and the yang type ideal that Star Wars has been based off of this entire time. One cannot exist without the other, and they're going to reach a point where there is not Jedi, there is not Sith, there's something in between, and they're finally going to bring balance. Because I don't know about anybody else, I am done with numbered Star Wars episodes at this point. I want the next one to end this story and just give me Star Wars stories. I want more Star Wars movies. I don't want a continuation unless it's 30 years later and we're going to get a Force Awakens Part 2 with the Force Awakens characters. Then give me more. But Rian Johnson's trilogy, I want that to be prequel stuff of the Old Republic and whatnot, and then end it and we're done. I don't want more numbered Star Wars. I love this trilogy, but I'm done with it. The story needs to end. Give me Han Solo. Give me Rogue One. That has been the episode. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and do all that other nonsensical stuff.
Adios.